hear it all the time, in consultations, in comments, in messages that land in my inbox at 2 a.m. from men who can't sleep. She takes and takes and takes. I give everything. My time, my money, my energy, my attention. And what do I get back? Nothing. She just keeps taking. And these men are angry, frustrated, exhausted. They feel like ATMs with legs, like their only value is what they can provide. And they want to know, why do women do this? Why do they take advantage? And I'm going to tell you something today that might make you uncomfortable. Because the answer isn't what you think. The answer isn't that women are greedy. The answer isn't that women are manipulative. The answer isn't even about women at all. The answer is about you. About one specific thing you're doing that creates this entire dynamic. One thing that, if you stopped doing it, would transform your relationships overnight. The one thing, you keep giving. That's it. You keep giving when you should stop. You keep giving when every signal says stop. You keep giving when your gut screams stop. You keep giving, and then you're shocked that someone keeps taking. And I need you to understand something fundamental about human nature before we go any further. People take what is offered. That's not evil. That's not manipulation. That's just how humans work. If I leave a $100 bill on a park bench and walk away, someone will take it. I can't come back an hour later and say, I can't believe someone stole my money. Nobody stole anything. I left it there. I made it available. I created the opportunity. The taking was just the natural consequence of my offering. And that's exactly what's happening in your relationships. You're leaving $100 bills all over the park bench of your life, and then you're furious when they disappear. Let me be very clear about something. I'm not defending bad behavior. I'm not saying women are blameless angels. Some women absolutely do exploit men intentionally. Some women have learned that certain men can be squeezed like lemons, and they squeeze until there's nothing left. That's real. But here's what I've learned after years of working with men in crisis. In most cases, the woman isn't some criminal mastermind. She's just a normal person responding normally to what you're offering. Think about it like a buffet. You walk into an all-you-can-eat buffet. There's unlimited food, no restrictions, no limits. What do? You eat more than you would at a regular restaurant. Not because you're a glutton, not because you're a bad person, but because the structure of the situation encourages it. The food is there, it's available, it's offered freely. So you take it. Your girlfriend, your wife, your partner, she's at a buffet, and you're the one who set it up. Every time you say yes when you mean no, you add another dish to the buffet. Every time you give money you can't afford to give, another dish. Every time you cancel your plans to accommodate her plans, another dish. Every time you tolerate disrespect because you're afraid of conflict, another dish. And then you stand there watching her pile her plate high and you think, how could she? How could she? You built the buffet. You told her it was all you can eat. What did you expect? Now here's where it gets psychologically interesting. Why do you keep giving? Why can't you stop? It's not because you're generous. Generosity has boundaries. Generosity knows when to stop. What you're doing isn't generosity, it's fear management. You're giving to avoid consequences. You're giving to prevent something bad from happening. And that something bad is usually an emotional reaction from her that you don't want to deal with. Let me paint the picture. You think about saying no, you think about setting a boundary, and immediately your brain runs a simulation. You see her face fall, you hear her voice get cold, you feel the atmosphere shift. Maybe she gets angry, maybe she cries, maybe she withdraws and gives you the silent treatment for 3 days. Maybe she says something that cuts deep, something about how you don't really love her, how you're selfish, how she can't count on you. And your nervous system screams, avoid this. Do whatever it takes to not experience this discomfort. So you give, you say yes. You hand over the money, the time, the attention, and for a moment you feel relief. Crisis averted, she's happy. The tension dissolves, but you've just done something very dangerous. You've trained her. You've taught her that your boundaries are negotiable. You've shown her that if she applies the right pressure, anger, tears, disappointment, withdrawal, you will fold. And guess what? She's going to use that information. Not because she's evil, because she's human, and humans use information. This is conditioning, basic psychology. You've conditioned her to expect that pressure works. And now she applies pressure automatically, without even thinking about it. She's not sitting in a dark room plotting how to manipulate you. She's just doing what has worked before. You created the pattern. You reinforced it hundreds of times. And now you're trapped in a dynamic that feels like exploitation, but is actually just the logical result of your own behavior. Let me ask you something. When was the last time you let her be disappointed? Not angry at you for something you did wrong, just disappointed because she wanted something and you said no. When was the last time you watched her face fall and didn't rush to fix it? When was the last time you tolerated her discomfort without making it your emergency? If you can't remember, that's the problem right there. Here's a truth that will set you free if you let it. You are not responsible for managing her emotions. Read that again. You are not responsible for managing her emotions. Her disappointment is not your crisis. Her frustration is not your failure. Her sadness is not your fault just because you didn't give her what she wanted. She's an adult. Adults experience disappointment. Adults don't get everything they want. That's called life. And you trying to shield her from that reality isn't love. It's fear wearing a costume. Now let's talk about why you have this fear. Because it goes deeper than just avoiding an uncomfortable conversation. For many men, there's a terror lurking underneath. The terror of loss. The terror of abandonment. The terror of ending up alone with nothing. You give and give and give because somewhere in your mind you believe that if you stop giving, she'll leave. And if she leaves, you'll have nothing. You'll be alone. You'll be that guy, the divorced guy, the rejected guy, the guy who couldn't keep a woman. This is scarcity mentality, and it's killing you. Scarcity mentality says, this is my only option. This woman is the only woman who will ever want me. This relationship is the only relationship I'll ever have. If I lose this, I lose everything. And when you operate from scarcity, you negotiate from weakness. You accept terms you shouldn't accept. You tolerate behavior you shouldn't tolerate. You give more than you have because you're terrified of the alternative. And here's the cruel irony. Your scarcity mentality is actually making the thing you fear more likely. Women can smell desperation. They can feel when a man is clinging, when a man has no options, when a man is giving from fear rather than choice, and it's deeply unattractive. It shifts the power dynamic. It makes her feel like she's doing you a favor by being with you. And when someone feels like they're doing you a favor, they start acting like it. They start taking more, expecting more, respecting you less. You know what's attractive? A man who has options. A man who gives from abundance, not from desperation. A man who stays in the relationship because he chooses to, not because he has to. A man who could walk away but doesn't, not because he's afraid of being alone, but because he's actively choosing this partner. That man doesn't get taken advantage of, because that man sets boundaries naturally. That man says no without anxiety. That man's generosity comes from strength, and it's recognized and valued accordingly. So here's the question you need to sit with. Do you have options? Real options. Not theoretical options. Not, I could find someone else if I wanted to, while you're secretly terrified that you couldn't. Real options. Do you have financial security, social connections, physical health and attractiveness, career prospects, a life that would be genuinely good even if this relationship ended? If the answer is no, that's your first problem, not her, you. Because here's the thing, when you have options, everything changes. When you have a solid career, you don't feel like you have to buy her love with money. When you have a strong social circle, you don't feel like she's your only source of connection. When you're physically fit and confident, you don't feel like she's the only woman who would ever want you. When your life is full and rich, the relationship becomes an addition, not the entire foundation. And from that position, you give differently. You give from choice. You give because you want to, not because you're afraid of what happens if you don't. You give as an expression of love, not as a payment to prevent abandonment, and she can feel the difference. Trust me, she can feel it. A gift given from abundance is received differently than a sacrifice made from fear. One creates gratitude, the other creates contempt. Let me give you a framework. Think of yourself as a country. Countries have resources: time, money, energy, attention. Countries have borders, boundaries that determine what comes in and what goes out. Strong countries protect their borders. They don't let anyone take their resources freely. They negotiate treaties. They trade from positions of strength. They maintain their sovereignty. Weak countries get exploited. Their borders are porous. Their resources get extracted. They agree to bad deals because they have no leverage. Right now, you're operating like a weak country. Your borders are meaningless. Anyone can walk in and take what they want. You've signed treaties that only benefit her. You're hemorrhaging resources with nothing coming back. And then you're surprised that you feel exploited. You're not being invaded. You took down your own walls, you opened your own gates, you handed out maps to your treasury. Building optionality is like strengthening your country. It's getting your economy in order, your finances stable, your career advancing. It's building alliances, friendships and social connections that exist independently of your relationship. It's training your military, getting physically fit, confident, capable. It's diversifying your resources, having hobbies, interests, passions that give you fulfillment outside of her. When your country is strong, you negotiate from strength. And strong countries don't get taken advantage of. Now let me address something I know some of you are thinking. But if I stop giving so much, she'll leave. Maybe. Honestly, maybe she will. Some women have become so accustomed to the buffet that when you close it, they walk out looking for another one. And you know what? Let them. Because a woman who only stays when you're giving unlimited resources isn't a partner. She's a dependent. She's not there for you. She's there for the buffet, and you deserve better than being a meal ticket. But here's what happens more often. When you start setting boundaries, when you start saying no, when you start valuing your own resources, something strange happens. She respects you more. Not immediately. First there's friction. First there's testing. She'll push against the new boundaries to see if you're serious. She'll escalate the pressure that used to work. She might get angrier than before, cry harder than before, withdraw longer than before. She's testing whether these new walls are real or just cardboard. And this is the moment that separates men who transform their relationships from men who go right back to being exploited. If you hold the boundary through the testing, everything changes. If you fold at the first sign of pressure, you've just proven that the boundary was fake and she'll never take it seriously again. The testing period is everything. It might last a day, it might last a week, it might last a month. But if you survive it, you emerge into a different relationship, one where she knows your limits are real, one where your no means no. And here's the paradox that blows men's minds. After you start setting boundaries, after you stop overgiving, after you demonstrate that you can't be manipulated through emotional pressure, she often becomes more attracted to you, more respectful, more giving herself. Because you've finally become the man she actually wants. Not a doormat, not an ATM, a man with backbone, a man with self-respect, a man who values himself enough to protect what's his. That's attractive, that's rare, that's what women actually respect. Let me tell you what this looks like practically. She asks for money you can't afford to give. Old you panics, imagines the disappointment and hands it over anyway. New you says, I can't do that right now. That's it. No long explanation, no justification, no negotiation, just, I can't do that right now. And then you sit in the discomfort of her reaction without trying to fix it. She wants you to cancel plans with your friends to do something with her. Old you abandons your friends to avoid her disappointment. New you says, I've already committed to that, but I'm free on Sunday. And then you actually go hang out with your friends instead of caving. She gets upset about something minor and expects you to manage her emotions for the next 3 hours. Old you walks on eggshells and does everything to smooth it over. New you acknowledges her feelings, offers reasonable support, and then goes about your life because her mood is not your responsibility. Every single one of these moments is a training opportunity. You're either training her that pressure works, or training her that you have real boundaries. There's no neutral. Every interaction is reinforcing one pattern or the other, and after years of training her that pressure works, you're going to have to untrain her. It's not going to happen overnight, but it's not impossible either. Now let me address the fear of loss again, because this is where men get stuck. If I change, she might leave. Yes, that's a real possibility. But let me ask you something. If she leaves because you started having boundaries, was she ever really yours? Or were you just renting her attention with your resources? Because a woman who loves you, actually loves you, doesn't leave because you said no to something. She might be frustrated, she might push back, but she doesn't walk out the door because you finally started valuing yourself. The women who leave when you set boundaries were never invested in you. They were invested in what you provided. And losing them isn't loss, it's clarity. It's finding out the truth about your relationship before you waste another 5, 10, 20 years feeding a buffet that was never going to fill her up. Some men need to lose a relationship to learn this lesson. Some men get lucky and their partner adjusts. Either way, the lesson is the same. You cannot buy love, you cannot purchase respect, and you cannot sacrifice your way into being valued. Let me talk about the internal work for a minute. Because changing your behavior is only half the battle. The deeper work is changing the beliefs that drove the behavior. Somewhere along the way, you internalize the idea that your value comes from what you provide, that you're only lovable when you're useful, that if you stop giving, you stop mattering. And that belief is a lie, a destructive lie that keeps you trapped in exhausting one-sided dynamics. You have to ask yourself where that belief came from. For many men, it started in childhood. Maybe you had a mother whose love felt conditional on your performance. Maybe you had a father who modeled constant self-sacrifice. Maybe you were praised only for what you achieved, not for who you were. These early experiences shape our adult relationships in ways we don't even see. And until you see the pattern, you can't break it. A man who believes he's only valuable when he's providing will attract women who only value him for what he provides. It's a match. A toxic match, but a match nonetheless. His belief creates his behavior. His behavior attracts certain people. Those people reinforce his belief. And the cycle continues. The only way out is to challenge the original belief, to start believing that you have inherent value, that you're worthy of love even when you're not giving anything, that you matter just because you exist. I know that sounds like self-help fluff, but it's actually the foundation of everything. Because when you truly believe you have inherent value, you stop tolerating treatment that suggests otherwise. You stop overgiving to prove yourself. You stop accepting crumbs because you believe that's all you deserve. Your external standards rise because your internal standards rose first, and women respond to that. They can feel a man who knows his worth. It's not arrogance, it's groundedness, it's security, it's attractive. Let me give you the practical roadmap. First, build your options. This isn't about cheating or having backup women, it's about having a life that doesn't depend entirely on her. Financial stability, physical fitness, social connections, career progress, hobbies and passions. When your life is full, you negotiate from strength. You stop being afraid of losing her because losing her wouldn't mean losing everything. Second, practice saying no, start small, say no to minor requests. Get used to the feeling of her disappointment without rushing to fix it. Build your tolerance for discomfort. Each time you survive a no, it gets easier. You realize the world didn't end. She didn't leave. The fear was bigger than the reality. Third, let her experience consequences. If she's rude to you, don't pretend it's fine. If she cancels plans last minute, don't immediately reschedule at her convenience. If she disrespects your time, don't reward that with more time. People learn from consequences. If there are no consequences for bad behavior, the bad behavior continues. You're not punishing her. You're just allowing reality to teach her what you will and won't accept. Fourth, examine your fear. When you feel the urge to overgive, pause. Ask yourself what you're afraid of. What consequence are you trying to avoid? What emotion are you managing? Get specific. Name it. Because once you see the fear clearly, it loses some of its power. You realize you're making major sacrifices to avoid minor discomforts, and that trade isn't worth it. Fifth, get therapy if you need it. I'm serious. If you recognize that your overgiving pattern comes from childhood, from early experiences that shaped how you see yourself, that's deep work. That's not something you fix by reading one article or watching one video. That's excavation. That's unpacking years of programming. A good therapist can help you see the patterns you can't see yourself. Let me tell you what happens when men do this work. I've seen it hundreds of times. The man who is exhausted, resentful, feeling exploited, he transforms. He stops giving from fear, he starts giving from choice. His resources, time, money, attention, become valuable again because he treats them as valuable. And either his relationship transforms with him, or it ends and he finds a better one. Either outcome is a win. Either outcome is better than spending the next 30 years as a human ATM. And here's the beautiful thing. When you're no longer giving from fear, you can actually be generous in healthy ways. Real generosity is the kind that comes from overflow, not from desperation, is one of the best things a man can offer. But it has to come from the right place. Generous because you want to be, not because you're afraid not to be. Giving because it brings you joy, not because you're trying to buy safety. That kind of giving is received with gratitude. That kind of giving inspires reciprocity. That kind of giving creates good relationships. The giving you're doing now, the fearful, boundaryless, bottomless giving, that doesn't create gratitude. It creates expectation. It creates entitlement. It creates a dynamic where you're worth what you provide and nothing more. And then you're shocked when she treats you that way, but she's just responding to the system you built. Change the system, change the response. I want to address one more thing. Some men hear this message and swing too far the other way. They become stingy, cold. They start withholding as a control tactic. They weaponize boundaries. That's not what I'm describing. That's just a different dysfunction. A man who's healthy doesn't give too much or too little. He gives appropriately. He's generous when it's warranted. He's boundaried when it's necessary. He's not keeping score, but he's also not being drained. There's balance, there's flow, there's mutual exchange. Mutual exchange. That's the key. Healthy relationships have it. Unhealthy relationships don't. In a healthy relationship, both people give, both people receive, both people compromise sometimes, both people set boundaries sometimes. It's not perfect equality in every moment, but over time it balances out. Both people feel valued. Both people feel like they're getting something real from the partnership. If you're in a relationship where you give everything and receive nothing, that's not a relationship, that's a service contract, and you're not even getting paid. So here's the summary. Women don't take advantage of you because women are evil. Women take advantage of you because you allow it, because you give without limits, because you fear her emotional reactions more than you value your own resources, because you have scarcity mentality and no options, because you've trained her that pressure works, because you believe your only value is what you provide. The solution isn't to find a different woman. The next woman will do the same thing if you show up the same way. The solution is to become a different man, a man with boundaries, a man with options, a man who gives from choice, not from fear.